Our last transfer to round up the craziness that was the first half of the MLS summer transfer window, a blockbuster trade. Mark-Anthony Kaye goes to Toronto for Ralph Priso, just over $100 million guaranteed in GAM, an international roster spot, and a first-round super draft pick. First-round super draft picks, by the way, going for $250K, or no, international roster spots going $250K. Super draft pick going $100K, something like that. Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it could be a good pick with the way Toronto's playing right now.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I think it's next year's.
Yeah, 2023.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be a good pick then.
The most interesting one for me is the Ralph Priso part of this. Ralph Priso valued at about 100 million, or wow, 100 million, I wish. Ralph Priso right about 1 mil on transfer market. 19-year-old defensive midfielder, Canadian international, has been called into the Canadian team already. Had a very, very bright future in that group. He does also have a goal in 10 MLS appearances this season. I thought this would be a player that they'd build around as Michael Bradley works his way out. Marco Delgado already sent out. I thought him and Nobel Okello would have been the two that they would have built around. Obviously, and I had tweeted this out earlier, this is a very win now move from TFC, which is not something you see very often in this league that values player development and being a selling league. You don't see a lot of teams going win now, giving up assets and money to get proven players like that. Mainly, I think, because the reward for winning now isn't nearly as nice as developing players like Ralph Priso and sending him on. So that was really interesting to me, and I kind of liked it. I was kind of here for it, right? Move a lot of people around and get some win now players so you can compete in this league. I don't think it changes the landscape of how people do things, but I really did enjoy seeing that, because that's not something you see inter-league, right? Especially in the middle of the season, giving up players like Ralph Priso, right? Maybe in the beginning of the year, like, okay, Paul Arriola, $2 million down, right? Okay, that's an interleague win now move from FC Dallas that cost money. This was a money and assets for a win now player, which is something very rarely seen in the middle of the year. What do you think?
I think this is a risky move. Clearly, Toronto are going for the win now. That's very evident. They got rid of Pozuelo to bring in Bernardeschi. They gave up, in my opinion, a lot to bring in Mark-Anthony Kaye. They brought in Domenico Criscito. It was obviously a win now move, considering the fact that he's 35. I think it's risky because a lot of these guys are coming into the system for the first time. Insigne, Bernardeschi, Criscito, Mark-Anthony Kaye, even Salcedo's still in his first year here. That is a lot of pieces where you don't know if they're going to click. So if you bring on all this stuff, people have issues with chemistry or adjusting to Bob Bradley's system. It's a risk, in my opinion. It's clearly a risk Toronto's willing to take. I just think that, this isn't an LAFC case where the team was already playing super well, and then you went and brought in Gareth Bale and Chiellini to bolster the team even more. Whereas if they come in and they don't hit the ground running, they're not playing at their best level, it's fine because the team's already playing well. You're probably just going to be fine anyway. But Toronto is not playing well. They're bringing in a ton of new players who are going to have to learn not only the system, but a number of them are going to have to learn the league and the play style in the league. I think it's risky. I think this was a great move from Colorado. I think Toronto had another bad trade here. They're giving up a potential, young star plus $1 million in Garber bucks, plus an international spot, and a super draft pick, which super draft pick probably isn't, that big of a loss, but I just feel like they gave up a lot here. I think it's a risk.
Yeah. So, and I didn't want to dive too far into this, but hell, we're 90 minutes in. Let's keep going. This completely walks back the idea that teams don't care in a league without pro rel if they're not doing well. Toronto FC did not make the playoffs last year, started off slow this year. They then went ahead and say, okay, instead of trying to, build up our young guys, let them get the experience, and then we'll try again next year, sold them on with extra money, brought in a Canadian international center midfielder to fill that role, as well as went out and bought Lorenzo Insigne, Bernadeschi, and sent out some players that weren't doing well. Salcedo, Pozuelo, etc. And they still have a spot to use, which I think there's definitely one more coming. People who will sit there and say, oh, well, there's no pro rel, so there's no drive for teams to get better if they're not doing well. This is a complete opposite of what people think the league is. What I'm hoping is that more teams will focus on something like this, right? You have your teams, the San Jose's, for example, the Chicago's, for example, who now need to use Gagasolini money to revamp. The SKC's even, right? And they're injury stricken, so we can talk about that. But you have your teams that are like, okay, we'll try again next year. Toronto said, no way. We are a team that belongs in the playoff race. We are going to go ahead and go full bore for the next 20 games, 15 games, whatever it may be. And we're going to go push for this and try and make the playoffs because that's where we belong. So for people who don't look at the league and say, oh, well, they have no idea, they have no desire, they have no drive to get better if they're losing because there's no relegation. What are they afraid of? Not necessarily about the fear anymore. It's about teams wanting to be known for what they're known for. Toronto being a team in the top 4 of these consistently. Will they get there this year? Probably not. But they need to be in the playoff race because that's what Toronto FC need to be. I like the move, and I hope other teams feed off of that and take that to heart and kind of act the way that they are. And that'll just push our league forward, right? Teams that fold into that mindset of, we've got next year, are the ones that'll hold us back. There are teams that at the halfway point need to be spenders, and that's what this is from Toronto. I like this a lot.
It's a good point to bring up. I think you definitely don't want your San Jose's, or I can't even say RSL because they are like 3rd in the West right now, which is just ridiculous. But you got, let's just say your San Jose's, who are just kind of like, you almost have to say complacent with just finishing bottom of the West at this point, seeing as how they just do it like every year. So I think it's a good point that, I think that they should go for it. Obviously, it does improve the team. It's great to see them bringing in more talent into the league. That only helps the league grow overall. I'm just looking at it from a Toronto perspective rather than just an MLS perspective. I think Marc-Anthony Kaye is a good player. But let me just say, from my experience as a Knicks fan, selling the ship to bring in a win now opportunity when you don't know if they're going to click well together is risky. And it could have repercussions later on down the line. You could see more Chris Armas-esque seasons if you are selling the farm to win now with a team that you don't know if they can win or not. So yeah, it depends on, honestly, I think it just depends on how, as a fan, how you look at what you would want to see out of Toronto. Like, would you want to see them bring in these big names and develop some of their young guys around them? Or would you rather them sell all the young guys and risk it all, go for it all right now? I think it'll probably vary fan by fan, but it's certainly exciting. You can't say that if you're in Toronto, you got to be excited by what they're doing. Again, it's risky, but it's exciting for sure. More exciting than sitting 12th right now.